Hey, everybody. I am pleased to reintroduce my friend. I want you to put her in as Oakland City Council District 2 representative. She will be an outstanding representative for District 2. Charlene Wang. Charlene, welcome back.
Thanks,
And
Sonny.
yeah, you're looking fantastic, and I'm just pleased as punch. Hey, I want to start off something before you and I talk. One thing I want to start off with is a lot of people, they don't know what District 2 is.
Right.
Because the last time we were talking, you were at large. At large is the whole city, right? That's easy concept. But District 2 is kind of like, conceptually, yeah, what is that, right?
Mm-hmm.
This, folks, is District 2.
Bring it up.
Yep. And you would say, what are we looking at here? And I will tell you, it's right here, right? This is District 3. I live, my apartment is here. Now, my favorite place to go, the alley, is if you keep going here and you go up Grand, right?
Oh,
And
yes. I was listening to your interview with Suze Robinson. I heard that your favorite place that you said was the alley. So
yeah,
I know the alley. I love them too.
Yeah, I want you to go and I'll meet my friend Jackie, who is the owner, Jackie Simpkins. But that's District 2. And then all of this, my buddy John Russo, who at one point was this council member for District 2, lived right over here off Haddon Hill, which is what I'm circling here. And then when I first met Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, when she wasn't mayor, it was 1991, it was the Oakland Sharing the Vision event. I met her parents too. She and I wound up canvassing for a guy named Don Smith who's running for school board, and we walked this entire area for 4 hours.
Oh, so you know it well.
Yeah, back of my hand. It goes down here to the estuary, and been along here, and also down where Jack London is right here. And
right.
But if I go along here, right about there, it's 29th or so. There was a place called Tiki Tom's, which is on my video, which burned down. But Tiki Tom was one of the nuttiest guys you'd ever want to meet. And there's my brief tour. Oh, and by the way, I cannot conclude this part of the tour discussion without mentioning just right off the Cascades, the Cleveland Cascades right here. If you ever go running along there, right?
Yeah.
That stairway, which needs help.
It sure does.
It needs help.
Yep, that's my neighborhood. Right.
Yeah, and it used to be Leaning Tower Pizza over there.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
they have some pretty limited hours now, and yeah. And don't not mention Chinatown, a little Saigon. So.
You know what? Let's go back there, folks. She's right. Because I was boom, and you know what? I can hear a lot of people screaming at me about not mentioning Chinatown over here.
Right.
And some of the fantastic restaurants over here, including there's a little place on on Webster, and God, I forgot the cross street. I can't see it with this little thing. But I used to go there after leaving Cafe Van Cleef at 2 a.m, and they give me this huge. I can't even remember it. Carl Chan knows this place very well. Hey, Carl, if you're watching, you can choke me later. It's right here. Oh, I love it. I folks. Anyway, this is when I start thinking about it. I never realized this. This is my area. This is my stomping grounds. This is the area that Charlene will be a magnificent steward over.
Thanks, Sonny. That means a lot coming from you.
Oh, hey, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Hey, so tell us about the campaign from your perspective. What do you want to do for District 2 residents? Let's get that out of the way first of all.
And, yeah, definitely. So, and for District 2, this district means so much to me. As you know already, but maybe not everyone who is tuning in, my grandparents had lived out in West Oakland, bordering the highway, both in first Oak Center Towers, and then they moved to St. Mary's Center. And can you hear that ping, by the way? Maybe I need to silence my notification.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Okay.
I'm used to that. That's
okay.
It even happens on national television. It's like,
okay, great. Sounds good.
It's the Times,
It is the Times. But in any case, every weekend I would go to their apartment And then we would also go to Chinatown. And I remember, like, to me, Chinatown is one of the most visibly different places here in Oakland compared to my childhood. Just the level of blight and the fact that the restaurants, they used to be open. All these stores were open so late. And for the greater good of the city, it used to be one of the greatest tax revenue generators, and that's no longer the case. In part, because I mean, it's so obvious as to why, because nobody is. It's just the stores are closed down by 3 p.m. Things are boarded up. I see a lot of vacant storefronts too, and graffiti and whatnot. But this goes across the district. We see in the San Antonio Little Saigon area too. There's that 12th Street encampment. There's been an explosion in sex trafficking. So it's like District 2 has become like the red light district of Oakland, you know.
Why do you think that is?
I mean, I do think that some of it has to do with just the fact that we haven't had enough pragmatic leadership. And, you know, when we talk about sex trafficking, let's use that as an example.
Sure. Yeah.
A lot of the girls and women are being trafficked from different parts of the state. So Modesto, Fairfield, Sacramento. And then also girls are being picked up from our middle schools. Here you can see, like, actually, you know, the traffickers and the pimps, you know, stepped outside our high schools. It's really disturbing, you know. And I think some of it has to do with the fact that, quite frankly, oh my God, sorry, this is killing me. I need to silence my notifications on my end.
Hey, you're the boss. I don't even hear it, but I do hear it.
Hear it? Okay, on
it's
my
like white
end,
noise for me. It's like, you know.
On my end, I need to figure out how to silence these notifications. Whatever, I'm going to ignore it as long as you can't hear it. I am hearing a.
Well, I can hear it, but it's kind of like whatever, you know. Okay. So it's, you know.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. But in any case, I do think that this is a problem that is it's a symptom of our greater problems with the fact that we have steep, you know, police understaffing numbers here in Oakland. And I do think that we need to be more pragmatic. The state has a grants program called the Law Enforcement Specialized Units Program that we can apply for to get resources for specialized units of officers that focus on sex trafficking, crimes against children. Let's bring in that money to do that, you know, because I do know that there are some nonprofit organizations that are trying kind of a, you know, no law enforcement approach. And I'm not talking about the women and the girls being trafficked, but we're talking about, because I do not want them to be criminalized, but I'm talking about the pimps and the traffickers that are making money, and they're trying to get them out of the industry, but it's not working. Because what we know is when you can make money exploiting somebody else, I mean, this is a violent industry that often involves coercion behind the scenes, even if it's not, when you see the woman or girl walking the streets, you don't see the violence that is playing out behind the scenes, but it is playing out behind the scenes. And the violence interruption model isn't working because there isn't collaboration with law enforcement. Because at the end of the day, this was my point, if you can exploit somebody, if there's no consequences, if you can continue to do it, it's going to happen. We have, even when it comes to demand reduction side of things, the law as it's currently written in our municipal code says that as a deterrence mechanism, like, we should have been, in my opinion, prosecuting the Johns that are soliciting women and girls for sex. But one other way of doing it is to tow the cars as a consequence. Well, even that, we have it written into our law that only the third time that a John is soliciting for sex, that will there be consequences, and can their car be towed? This is a bare minimum consequence. And I just think that in some ways we just need to be pragmatic. There's got to be consequences for behavior, because these are not victimless crime.
Hey, is this a function, Charlene, also the businesses that have been closing? Because when I think of sex work and the activities, my first thought is, well, I'll bet you one of them at one point has a law degree or attorney. And I'll tell you where I came up with this idea. Um, I was a judge for the Raiders for the Raiderettes in '97, and when I was Alo Casala invited me to do that, and I was honored. Um, but the one thing that really struck me was how many of the women were lawyers, right?
Hmm.
And yet wanted to do this other thing. And I thought, wow, blew me away. Um, and it was great notoriety. And if you put it paid well, but it said to me, what does it say about where they're able to go or think they can or cannot go in their own profession, right? In terms of being a lawyer or anything like that. That was '97. I'm certain things are better today. But I still, but then we have this uptick and we have a greater recognition of sex workers and what they do. But my thought is always, why are you doing that as opposed to something else that should pay more lucratively, let alone be available, right? And I think it's to me it signals a broken economy. Am I wrong?
I mean, yeah, I definitely think these things are linked. Just people, maybe because of the pandemic, people are struggling to find living wage jobs. But I think part of the problem is it's not like the women that you'll see on these streets are not from Oakland. Many of them. Let me not make pure statements. But many of them are not from Oakland, and so given that, I think some of it's too is that, look, there's trafficking is always an issue, right? And it's something that we absolutely need to address, even at the state level. But I think what we've done here in Oakland is create the conditions by which it is attractive to bring your business here to Oakland at the detriment of the local families. You even have you can see in District 2 that you can start seeing some of the shops cater to the industry, where you have, shops selling lingerie, things like that. It's just, it really has become like a red light district, and the families nearby, and they're trying to raise kids and things like that. That's not what is needed, because the trafficking is also bringing in the gun violence, because again, it's a violent industry. It is. And so part of the coercion is the threat of violence. And so you can see that basically the area that is the sex trafficking corridor is also become the hotspot of fatal gun violence in District 2.
What you're talking about reminds me of a 2011. It's on here on the Vlog Report was in E62. I changed the name of it, but Jean Quan, when she was our mayor, had a press conference over at 40th International Boulevard about this exact same problem. That was 2011. And it just hasn't gone away. In fact, from our discussion, and it just seems like it's sort of seeped over more into District 2, than it was then, right?
Right.
It's something else. So when you think about what you're experiencing, the people you're talking to, are there an inordinate number of situations that are, and when I say like that, I don't mean in the way that person would imply, but I mean in terms of just hybrid, because people trying to make money, or, I mean, are things more jinky than we realize?
Sorry, what was that, Jenny? Are they more what than we realize?
It's a term. I just came up with a word, jinky.
Oh, okay.
It's like hinky, right? But it's Oaklandized. Hinky is a Midwestern term, so I made it Western. So I called it jinky instead of hinky. So that's supposed to be funny, but the whole point is.
Okay, sorry, that was.
Look on your face is like.
For my head.
No.
I was like, am I allowed? Sorry, this is such a serious topic that I'm am I allowed to laugh? I don't even know.
It is.
So I thought it might be a bit of a joke, but I'm like, I don't want to.
No. Only the way that I put it. Hey, Charlene, I'm the joke. So there's like, but the topic is serious, all right?
The topic is serious,
right? But I'm saying, but seriously, is our situation so bad that we have, legal dumping over here, prostitution over there? Is that what you're seeing more often than not?
I mean, yeah, I mean, that part of the district, I think, needs some of the most attention because it is just everything that you say. It's like the illegal dumping, the encampment, the gun violence, the trafficking. It is all happening in that corridor. So that's an area that I'm just really focused on turning that part of the neighborhood around. It needs it. The attention is needed, and I have specific grant programs in mind that I'd like to apply to actually in order to achieve the objectives. I already mentioned that law enforcement specialized unit grants. That's at the California level that we can apply for to bring in some resources. But the other thing when it comes to that encampment, since you brought up illegal dumping, we've talked a little bit about homelessness. Last time, I must say, I was talking about this concept, but I realized I should just use the phrase and the type of program that I've worked on in Massachusetts because I assumed it might be too wonky for people, but I realized people actually understand the concept. It's called
People are smart, yeah.
People are smart, yeah, exactly. So I'm going to go full wonk on people. So,
Yay!
yay! Yeah, I am. But what I have worked on in Massachusetts with the Unaccompanied Homeless Youth Commission is something called rapid rehousing. Which is this idea that, look, building shelters is important. So is building affordable housing. But while we do all that, that takes time. There's a subset of folks who would be well qualified to be taken off the streets quickly. Actually, we have a 9% apartment vacancy rate. People can be lined up with a rental subsidy it would be term limited. And this kind of model costs about $11,000 to house a family because it includes, of course, some wraparound services alongside the housing. And the other important thing in order to ensure that that family or that individual stays in the housing is the fact that they should be linked up with a job. And I'd like to link up these folks with jobs to actually clean up the streets, help address the blight. I think I did talk about this during the at-large run, but now I've identified a specific grant program that we can apply for to fund exactly this kind of initiative. It's called the Emergency Solutions Grant that we can apply for to bring that funding to do that. So when I think about that 12th Street encampment, I will say that I think those folks, because I have, just that encampment in particular has a lot of just gun violence. There's a lot of fires. There's a lot of folks in that encampment that are suffering from either serious mental health conditions like schizophrenia or drug addictions, in part because they've been pushed into that. Because I've spoken about this during the at-large race, but the reason that rapid rehousing is important because right now, instead, when we focus on just building more housing again, it takes 7 to 10 years to build the housing, it takes $1 million per unit. Right. People are being forced onto these waiting lists because it's a scarcity mindset. And people they're becoming addicted to drugs from living on the streets. They're getting PTSD. Their conditions are worsening instead of intervening early. So, when I think about treating a cancer patient, it's like we wait till people are at stage 4 cancer when they're at their most expensive instead of intervening early, when they're most likely to be able to recover, to get back on their feet. And more importantly, too, this is both for the individual and for the taxpayer, to be able to live a self-sufficient life, which is ultimately the ideal outcome for the individual, and also for our resources. We are in a budget deficit. We don't have the money to have everybody that we want live on permanently subsidized housing for the rest of their life. So let's prevent individuals from getting to that point.
Hey, on the matter of the deficit, how do you think it should be solved? My thought is really hybrid. I think they have mentioned it before when we were campaigning, but I believe that we should simply go back to what we used to do, use tax increment financing, and actually, for example, talking about our terminal, again, as a project, but I'll say it this way, I'll make it really simple. April 2023, the Economic Development Department put on the database of The Athletic publication a draft infrastructure financing plan for Howard Terminal, including a subsidy of $2.5 billion. $2.5 billion. Now, under AB 464 Mullen, which was passed in 2021, we're allowed to use tax increment financing to help businesses recover from the pandemic. That's precisely what it's for. So we could take that money, assign it for that purpose, and in the process of writing that plan, slide 100 million over, or 200 million, or 300 million over to the city of 2.5 billion, right? Right. And no problem. When I mention it to people, they say, well, it's still a one-time thing. I said, well, but it's a new source of income that you can draw from negotiation with what we now would call the Public Financing Authority. We used to do it with a redevelopment agency. That's my idea. But what's your take on it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think...
Or you could borrow my idea.
No. I mean, I think the tax increment financing is an important one. The only problem is it does rely on, my understanding of how that works is it relies on property values to increase to sort of reinvest that money. And we are not seeing... Okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you. As a 37-year, if property just turns over, that turnover causes property that was at its assessed value to go to its market value. And the average rate of growth in assessed value in Oakland over 10 years has been 9% per year. It has consistently outperformed inflation, consistently. So there's another aspect that people don't know about. It's called unsecured property. Property not affixed, buses, airplanes, certain types of cars for commercial purposes. So that's why, it's really a good idea to use it. Oakland cleaned up on it in the the era before 2011. Even Jerry Brown took advantage of it when he was mayor. Then he got rid of it as governor. Go figure. But right. So it's not. A lot of people look at that diagram. When you start doing the math, I always say to people, learn the math. You do the math, then it takes on a different look.
Okay.
Yeah. We talk about it, but I want to get into that.
Yes,
I want to find out. Tell people who's endorsing you. You have a long list of endorsements. Woo! Talk about them.
I know. Well, I will say very proudly that I think an endorsement I'm pretty excited about is just this past weekend, I got the endorsement from the SF Chronicle, and they actually said, to my pleasant surprise, that I am the strongest Bay Area candidate that they've spoken to, one of the strongest Bay Area candidates that they've spoken to in recent memory, because they believe, given the detailed plans that I've outlined, that and my experience in public administration, that I can execute upon them, that I can deliver during this really complicated time in Oakland. So yeah, I was very proud. I was expecting an endorsement. I didn't think they would say such. They would give me such high praise. So that is absolutely an honor. So, but yeah, I got lots of endorsements, over 100 endorsements from various organizations like Planned Parenthood, Quality California, Sierra Club. Let's see what else that we got here. I don't mean to leave anyone out. SEIU, USWW. This is the union that represents security workers. We got the building trades. And then I have 4 of the prior 2 District 2 city councilors that are endorsing me as well. So everyone but the last one. So, and the interim. But everybody else that served the district prior to that, as well as 3 sitting and former Oakland mayors. And we recently also got Assembly Member Buffy Wicks. So,
Buffy!
Woo! So,
yeah, Buffy, my good friend from Obama days. So, yeah, she's awesome. She's awesome.
Yes,
definitely. And you got Pat Kernigan too.
Yep, and Pat Granahan.
Yeah,
So
Pat used to work for John Russo, chief of staff, many years ago.
right. Yep.
But yeah.
And I
And
have John Russo as well. So
yeah, and John's my buddy.
yep.
So
So it's a good list. And
yeah. You
but
should
I
write
haven't
it down.
responded to your question, by the way, about budgets and what to do about that.
Sure.
So let me demonstrate to your audience as to why I got these endorsements.
But I got to say one thing. You come a long way because folks, she was Zenny 62 Media client last time, and Charlene was just getting to the point where she was beginning to open up.
Yeah.
And now you're open. And it's a delightful thing to see. I have to say, it really is.
That's true. I guess also because I know you now, Zenny, so I am much more relaxed. So maybe I'm taking this too informal.
Don't anybody think she's ever done that? That's like, no.
I'm also a little delirious. I do so much canvassing these days, and I'm like, whatever. We're letting it all hang out. So, But anyways, your audience also wants to hear specifics. So I'm going to try to offer that up between the giggles here. But budgets, like you asked that, right? What are we going to do about it? So I've been looking at the budget. There's two ways to look at it. First, generating revenue, and of course, cutting expenses. I'm going to start on the cutting expense side of things, in part because it's the harder question. I will say that Oakland does not have true performance-based budgeting. Like we do not, unlike other cities, make decisions around our budget where we have like the city council does not have a set of outcomes and metrics to make the decision. And so we're kind of flying blind here in Oakland City Council when we make these decisions. And that really is problematic because it also introduces, I would say, political favoritism, making decisions based off of what feels good rather than what is actually driving better outcomes for the residents. And at times, it can actually allow the conditions for outright corruption, as we're seeing in very public ways. Because I think that's all tied to the general lack of oversight into how we're really doing our spending. And our auditor's office is deeply understaffed. They do not have enough people, even though we know. I mean, look, don't get me wrong, like, we should, of course, be generating more revenue. But we actually already here in Oakland have one of the highest tax revenues per capita in the state.
Yep.
Yet we're not seeing the outcomes that we deserve, and so we really do need to take a deep dive into what is going on in terms of the spending. I would say too that I am pledging to take a voluntary pay cut myself, to also use that as a symbolic gesture to call on our executives to take on a pay cut and those who make the highest amount of money. So, because I think this is a time of shared sacrifice, and I think we have a lot of also finger pointing that say, you're the problem with the budget. We've got these factions, and people are pointing fingers instead of saying, you know what, we are in a time of crisis.
Right.
We have to figure out ways to cut expenses. We just have to, because right now, we have all these businesses leaving. We have to figure out a way. We're going to put on the sales tax, but if we put on a sales tax, you bet your butt that we need to demonstrate to the business community that is already suffering so much that we're also going to get serious about tightening our belts, and everyone, including leaders of the city, are going to sacrifice themselves.
Hey,
yeah.
Can we talk about also the president has went on this, well, I call him a Russian asset, and I'll just get it out there. Cutting monies that's gone to nonprofits like some in Oakland. What do you have to say about that? Because my thought is we need to really make sure that even though they supposedly reverse these, the federal government, not the federal government, but the administration has not followed even judges' orders. And so there may be somebody out there in the district who's not getting their money but doesn't know what to do. What do you say to them?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I know this in some ways because I, was actually working for the federal government. I myself am now on administrative leave since my entire office got put on administrative leave. As you might recall, I worked for the EPA Office of Environmental Justice
Yeah.
and Civil Rights. And, you know, I, up until the point I was put on administrative leave, was seeing the back and forth where we were pausing the issuing of grants, and then we were starting to issue some grants. But, you know, what I do know this is someone who works for the federal government, is that statutory, something called statutory appropriations, that money is supposed to continue to flow out the door. And the federal judge put in a restraining order and said that the Trump administration needs to continue issuing those grants. And I will say that.
And that was Bonta. I think he was part of that, right?
Yes, I do believe so.
Yeah.
And what I do know.
Yeah.
And what's that now?
Our AG, Attorney General.
Yes, that's right. Our AG. That's right. Yeah. But meanwhile, I will say that, you know, what do we do about it in terms of some of these nonprofits? I do think that we need to invoke some legal assistance, either with the AG's office or even with our own city attorneys. And I will say, in the meantime, you know, the challenges that it presents, because even our own city government has been cutting off grants to Oakland-based nonprofits, in part because of the deficit. I don't know, honestly. I don't want to overpromise. I don't know if we can really say that we can pay them after all. But one of the things that I'm intending to do with my office holder account is to bring on grant writing technical assistance as a service that is offered through my office. So that way, nonprofit organizations, not only nonprofits, our own government certainly needs grant writing assistance. So as a form of assistance to our own city workers, nonprofits needed help. We also have small businesses that need help applying to loan programs, grants, things like that. And I will be bringing on a technical assistance provider that can actually contract with them to help all these organizations, especially in light of the budget deficit.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to be able to issue direct grants as we did before, you know, in many ways. So we have to find ways to give assistance to help organizations find other grants that are available either at the federal level, the state level, or through private foundations.
Now, time check. Michael said 30 minutes.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yep, I got to get going soon.
Yeah, so you have questions out here from Seneca. You want to take them? Seneca doesn't bite. He's my friend. You know, I schooled him on how he's behaving lately, but you know. But
okay, sure. What are the questions?
I'll put him right here. First of all, he writes, there is systemic corruption in City Hall. Wang is aware of the ITS lawsuit, Insight Terminal Solutions. What are her thoughts on the financial impact of Oakland if we lose? What are her thoughts on the coal saga? It's a good question, actually. You know.
I am aware of the lawsuit. I must say that this is one area that I need to do more reading on in terms of what we're going to do going forward. Yeah, I just think this is something that could potentially hit my desk. So I just want to be more well read on the history on this coal lawsuit before I make a comment. Yeah.
I mean, I think my comment is, well, Insight Terminal Solutions was created, was my client. I begged to have them as a client because, unbeknownst to a lot of people, Charlene, it was the city of Oakland that came up with the idea of pursuing coal, not Phil Tagami.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the start of it, okay? But the bottom line is where we are right now. I think we need to pull the politics out of it because there have been a lot of violations there because of that. Started from the idea that Tom Starr came threw around his money. A lot of elected officials wanted that money. I'm not going to say who, and started moving right in line with him. And in our case, a bunch of those officials signed the development agreement saying, hey, look, we're going to build this thing. Then they tried to turn away from it, even to the point of saying, hey, look, we didn't know about this before 2015. It's a total lie. Development, their signatures will put their 2013. That's just, again, those two are just the start of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to offline, help you out, information, that sort of thing, because it's a complicated issue that gets tied up no offense, Seneca, with people who really don't know the ins and outs of it, becomes overly politicized. Overly politicized.
Yeah.
And it's got to be handled gingerly because, you know, now we're dealing with a federal government that has changed in a way that could affect us in that area, right? So there has to be some. We got to put our heads together and figure out how to deal with it.
Right.
So that's just, I'm just helping out my friend here.
Okay. No, thank you. Yeah, I
Don't
need
hold her to. Don't say,
read
"Oh,
more.
Charlene said no, no, she doesn't look like me." So no.
Yeah, I need to. Yeah. Oh, and Michael is pinging me. I will say, just with my final comment on rooting out systemic corruption, one of the things I'd like to pursue is contractor reform of the contracting process, because I do think that not only does our current system delay very important services that we need, like the potholes are a symptom of the problem of the general mismanagement and the contracting process, but it also introduces more corruption
Yeah,
by
absolutely.
by having, it's just, this is not this is unique to this city council, and so we need to reform that process and strengthen some of the ethics laws, but also delegate more authority to city staff to carry out their jobs. Yeah.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right, I'm gonna stop the stream for you so Michael doesn't
Okay.
get mad at me.
Sounds good. Yep, I see Michael also pinging me too.
Michael's like, ah! Sorry, Michael. All right. Hey, folks, thank you. And remember, subscribe to the vlog report with Zenny62 and bookmark zenreport.com. That ends the stream.